Hello, fellow Bubble developers. Nikolai Markovich from Echolaketech Technologies, echolaketech.com. This video is a follow-on to an earlier video where I showed how to create a countdown counter for auctions. And in this video, what I'm going to do is walk through a similar approach for countdowns for minutes, hours, and days. Before I get into the demo, if you like these type of videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate that. So let's jump into a demo here. So I'll do a 1 minute countdown. And so we got 58 seconds on this one. I'll just pick a 1 hour here. And then for this one, we'll pick 2 days for this one. Okay, so you can see in this right here, so we've got 41 seconds coming up, 59, just over 59 minutes for the 1 day countdown. And for this 2 day, we've got 1 day, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 40 seconds left. So let's get into the design for this. Okay, the design actually for all three of these are fairly similar. I've basically got a text field here that talks about, whether it's minutes, hours, or days. And then I've got a drop down for all three of them. And in the drop down, they're static choices. I just simply picked a couple of values for these. And for this one for hours, I just picked, I think, 1 through 10 hours. And for the days, I just picked up to 10 days. Certainly for your app, you can do whatever you would like. And to get to the drop down, let's see, where is drop down? Right here. It is under input forms. And all I did here was, again, kept it as static choices. And then values I just typed in. So that's how you create the drop down with those values. And then I have start buttons, as you can see, for all three of these. And let's jump into the workflow. The first step in the workflow is to create a new auction. And all I'm doing here is capturing the type of auction. So for this one, it's minutes. I do have different types of auctions. This one, as I mentioned, is minutes. I've got one for hours and days. So this one again is minutes, and this is just typed in. End time is the drop down for the minutes here. So action duration mins, and you'll notice that each one of these are uniquely labeled or named. And so that's so Bubble knows which one to grab the value from. And then I have the start time or end, start or end, and this basically says that the countdown is starting with this workflow. So let's go through and see how we fill these in. So auction type equals, and again, minutes. Now, just to note, again, I've said this in other videos, if you've watched some of those, Bubble is case sensitive, so this minutes here with a capital M is a different value than the lowercase m. So just be careful with that when you are going in and typing in values. End time equals current state, so current state is down at the bottom. I'm sorry, not current state, current time and day. And then plus minutes. So because this is going to be a countdown, I need to take the current time and date, and then I need to add to it. So we're going to, where is plus minutes, right here, plus minutes. And then it's going to be the drop down action. So I can scroll down, drop down auction and minutes right here, and then the value. So that's how we get the end time. We're basically taking the current time, and then we're converting the minutes for the future end state, or however many minutes that we want the countdown to be. Start and end time, and then for this one, it is again just type it in like that. Okay, that's how we get to create the new auction. Add a pause. So the reason why this is in here is when you come over here and creating a new auction, um, it's in there to help get the right value. So you can even see on here there was a -7 that popped up, and this is just some of the browser and interacting with Bubble. So this adding 1,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second, it helps make the user experience a little bit better. Rounding it out here for the third step is setting states. So I've got group minutes duration is the element, and then I've got a custom state end time and start time. And for this one, the value is going to be the result from step 1, the end time. So step 1 here, the end time. Now I could have gone and copied this here, the current date time plus minutes, so forth, and I could have put that in here, but instead it's just kind of quicker to go and do the result from step 1 end time. And then similarly, start and end, it is start. I could have gone results from step 1, so I could have, alternatively, I could have done this and done that instead. They're both equivalent. Okay, and just to show you how I did this, I'm going to first jump to the database to show you the auction structure. So auction, so I have, again, the name auction. I've got the auction name. I don't use it in this design. I do have another design that covers this here where I pick the date and time for the auction to end. And so the auction name is used in that design, and I have the link down below in the chat, as well as a little pop-up here so that you can go and look at that video. Check that out, it's pretty cool. And then we've got the auction type. Again, we've got minutes and hours and days and so forth, so we use that text field. Duration, so that's a calculated value, which actually is a number of seconds. That's the duration of the auction. The end time, which is the date, and start and end, which is that text field, whether we're in the countdown or if it's ended, if the auction has ended. Now, if you're not familiar with how to create this, so auction, simply come down at the bottom here and type in whatever you want the type of your data type to be. Again, this one is auction, and then click on create. I'm not going to actually create that because it's already been done. And then for the fields, so these different fields here, create a new field, type whatever you want, and then the data type for it, text, number, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to create it again. I've already got these created for you. And that's how you create both the data type as well as within the data type the fields, the data fields. Now let's jump back to the workflow here. So for creating a new auction, we come over here, add a new action, and then under data, create a new thing. The new thing, let me move this over, new thing is going to be auction. And then I've already gone through, walking through the steps. So again, but just real quick, auction type. I do want to point out though, so you see as I'm moving my cursor, so if you see the little search under there, if I type in minutes, right, it's not going to come up because it's looking for a dynamic type of value here. So what I want to do is, you see the cursor type moving or changing, so right here I click, and minutes, and there you see minutes showing up, and I think I should be able to click on that, hit the delete button, there we go, clean it up a little bit. Playing around with this is just one of the things with Bubble you've got to get accustomed to working with, between these typed in values versus the dynamic values. So that's how you set up auction. Just going to delete that, adding the pause. So just come down here, element actions, and actually not element actions, it's under navigation, and add a pause, and then the default is 1 second, so I just left that alone. And then the last step here, setting a state, that one is under element actions, set state. And the element was, I can type in group, and then this one is for minutes. And then I can pick the custom states here and the values. So the end time was was the results from step 1 and the end time here, and then just kind of finishing here, so the start or end, and this one is start, like that. And that's how we set up the set state here. Now I'm going to jump back to the design, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the custom states. So for group minutes duration, if you're not familiar with creating groups, it's under containers, group. And then for this, the background color, I just arbitrarily picked this kind of gray color. So over here, flat color, I'm just going to double click, Control C, Control V, and that's how I get the gray color. Now, for the custom states, you see this little eye up here for element inspector. So I've got these custom states on here, end time, which is of type date, start or end is type text, and the update counter, which is of type date. So those are used back here for setting the state. So the group minutes duration, and then the end time and the start time. So that is referring to start time and end time, to these custom states for this group. And I'm just going to click down here to the group for hours. So group hours duration, and it's set up the same way, end time, start time, and update counter. And then for this one for days, group days duration, got them all, it's all set up. Now this one also has days because I need to have this, the days as part of the calculation, which I'll get to in a little bit further in the video here. But you can see that these groups are pretty consistent in setting them up for the custom states. So let me go back over here, custom state, add a new custom state just to show you real quick. So whatever the name of the custom state, and then the type. And that's how you set up custom states. So for this group here I just created, there's no custom states, so I can just add a new custom state. Okay, let me delete this here. Now let's get into a little bit more complicated part of the design here, and this is setting up the text field. So I'm going to go back and forth between this view here and the rich text editor view. A reason being because some things are easier to see in this view and some are easier in the other view. So time remaining is just the text part of it. Everything you see in blue here are the dynamic values, which I'll get to in the other screen in a moment. And then I have just minutes and seconds. So you can see on here, well actually the auction is over, but you can see on here minutes and seconds. And if I were to do another one, I gotta refresh. And another auction kicked off. Okay, so for this text field, what we have here is group minutes duration. So again, this is group minutes duration. End time. So this is that custom state. Group minutes duration, end time. So it's taken that value, and then subtracting the group minutes duration update counter, formatted as seconds, divided by 60, modulo 60. So this is basically taking the remainder from the division. We're doing some rounding to get to 0. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. If you're interested in the math, certainly reach out and I can go through that. But just to kind of avoid that complexity, this is how you want to set it up, and this is how you will get the calculation for minutes. And then similarly for seconds, it's the group minutes duration, end time, so same as it was up here, minus the group minutes duration update counter, formatted as seconds, same as up here. And then instead of the divide by 60 for minutes, there's no division, it's just a modulo 60, and that will get you the seconds. Now let me walk through here and show you, give you an example, or walk through how to do this. So insert dynamic data, and I'll do the top one here because it's a little more complicated. So group, minutes, duration, and then we're taking the end time, and you get the more here. Click on that, scroll down, minus, okay, and then we're going to do group, minutes, duration, update counter, and then we're going to be format as seconds. You see the more here, click on that, scroll down, and click the divide. Now don't type, don't do the forward slash, or if you do the forward slash, make sure you click on that, because if you just do the forward slash and don't hit that that symbol, Bubble won't treat it as an actual division. So then type in 60, and then I'm just going to click down here so I get the more button. Click on that, scroll down for modulo, and then here type in 60, and now I'm going to just click down here in the gray area so I get the more button again. Scroll down, minus 0.5, click down to get the more, rounded 2, and then 0. So that's how you set it up. Play around with it and get familiar, because some of the syntax here can be a little tricky to set up in Bubble. So my advice is just to experiment and get used to how Bubble interacts with the editor. Conditional. So I have a conditional on here, and basically what this does is at the end of the countdown, when the start or end is end, then I go and I'm going to jump to the text editor. Auction is over. And this is how it should be done by now. Yep, there it is. Auction is over. So that's the conditional, that it's over, and that will print in the text. And let me show you how to set this one up. It's basically, I'm going to type in group. Now I type in group here, but this is just, you can scroll down, and sometimes this list isn't too bad. I mean, it's a little long, but some of the pages you'll have are going to have a lot of different elements on it. So that's why I'm just kind of used to typing in, but you can also certainly just scroll down and get to group. Where are we? Group. See, this is why I like typing it in, because even with a relatively short list, okay, it's right there. Group, minutes, duration. Scroll down, and then start or end is, and then type in end. And so that's how you set up the conditional. And then for the action for the conditional, so I'm just changing the text. I'm going to jump over here and auction ended, like that, and then I can format it, change the size, and so on and so forth, the color. Again, something to play around with, experiment with Bubble. That's part of the fun of using Bubble. Okay, so that's how you set up that text, so that again at the end of the auction it'll say auction over. I am going to quickly go through the text for auction for hours. It's a couple more steps. So we had the minutes in the previous example and seconds. This one we're adding the hours, as you would expect. And so group hours duration. So again, a similar setup as you saw with the minutes. Instead of group minutes here, we're dealing with group hours, which is, again, as a reminder, group hours duration. And the end time minus the group hours duration update counter. And now you'll see that it's divided by 60 and then another divided by 60. You may be asking, why isn't it divided by 360? Experiment with it, and you'll see that Bubble's algorithm, the way it handles the calculation, will come up with a different answer. So just play around with it, convince yourself. That's part of the fun, again, with using Bubble, is it's quick to do some of these experiments. Modulo 120. Again, to get to the hours, and then the minus 0.5 rounded to 0. And that's just to truncate off the end so you get nice clean numbers at the end, so you don't have like long extensions of decimals and so on and so forth. The other two for minutes and seconds is the same as we went and looked at up here. And then rounding it out for the days. So this one here, we did seconds and minutes and hours already. So for this one here, we've got days involved. So again, it's very similar in the sense of the group days and time, group days duration, update counter, and then go through the calculations and so forth. It's very similar format. It's just that the values change depending on if you're talking minutes, hours, and days. And similar to the others from the custom state, similar values and so forth. Okay, I'm going to jump back to workflow because there are a couple of other very important parts to it. We talked about the start button already. And you can see that I have some color coordinations on here. So the purples here go together, the blues go together, the greens go together, and these tan or yellow go together. And if you're not familiar with setting up the colors, it's pretty straightforward and simple with Bubble. You just pick whatever color. And you'll find that as your workflows start getting a little bit more complicated and you have a very long page of workflows, this can become very powerful to assign, or not assign, but rather visually see which workflows are associated to one another. So let's take a look at group hours here. And for this one, it's a do when. So basically, whenever this this condition here occurs, then it'll run this workflow step. And the conditional is when the group hours duration end time minus the group hours duration's update counter formatted as seconds is less than 0, and the hours duration start or end is start. So basically what this is doing is it's taking a look to see if the countdown is still happening and it's above 0. Once the countdown counter hits 0, then this condition, as well as the value is start, is true. Then it's going to come over here and it's going to change the state to end. So the group hours duration start or end is end. And just to go back over to here, to the text, we have these conditionals. When the group hours duration start or end is end. And these are all very similar. So when the group days duration is end, auction is over, group hours duration is end, then we come up with auction over as a text, and similar here. So that's how we're setting it up in this conditional here. And to show you how to set up the event, so let's come over here, element, or rather general, when condition is true, and we do it every time. And then we go in when, and now I'm going to have to refer to this because I don't always remember all the details offhand. So group end time, group hours duration end time minus group duration hours duration update counter formatted as seconds, and it's less than or equal to 0. Okay. And then I have this other part of the conditional. So if I click on 0, I get the more here. So click on that. And group hours start or end is start. And that's how you set up this conditional. And then over here, element action, and let's see here. For this one, we have set state, element action, set state, and then again, I'm just going to type in group hours duration, and just like that. Okay, so that's how you set up the event in the workflow so that at the end of the auction, you get the auction over text come in. Now, a couple other important things to note. On page loaded, if you recall back to creating a new auction, so we're creating the auction in the database. Now the thing is, so we've got these other auctions that are going, and I can do a refresh page. I want to make sure when I do a refresh page that those auctions continue to count down. The way you do that is creating the auction in the database, so you're saving all the initial information. Now when you do a page reload, you want to retrieve that information and put it into those custom states so that the browser will continue down with the countdown. Okay, and this is how you do that. So let's take the hours, since we were looking at the group hours. And for the states there, we have the end time and the start time. And you'll see we have these searches here, right? So we're searching for the auctions and the current user, and then the auction type is hours. And we're going to take the last one that's in the database. So you could have 200, 300, 100 different auctions of this type in the database. And we're, in this example, in this design, I'm just taking the last one. So in your application, this is something to be sensitive to and be aware of. You may set it up a little bit differently depending on the needs for your app. But in this demo, I'm just taking the last auction time or information and putting that into the custom state. So let me just show you how to do that. So the custom state and time, and then I'm going to do a search for, and we're searching for auctions, and then I'm picking the created by equals and then current user. Again, for your app, you may use something different for your criteria here for searching. And then the other criteria was, what did I have for the other criteria? Hours. So if the auction type equals, and again, if you click on it and you see the search, that's not going to work. So click to the left here, hours, just like that, and then you can click on it when it says search, and you can just delete that if you don't like seeing that aesthetically. Click on more, and then we are looking at for this one is the end time, so each item's end time, so each item's end time, and then the last item. So that's how you set up the assigning the value. You do the search for, so it's searching the Bubble database for all of your entries, and it's picking the last one in the database, and that end time is going to be assigned to the custom state in the group hours duration. And that's how you set that up. And I did it, you'll see here, it's the same for group days and group minutes as well. It's very similar, searches for those, and so forth. So that's part of it for page load. And again, the reason why you want to do this is so that you're taking the data from the database and putting it into the state so that when the app runs, these text fields are taking the data from the state. You're not going into the database, you're going into the browser's memory, which is why that when I do make changes here like I have, it's still going to be running. And I could go and delete these. Let me actually go do that. So this one is hours. So I'm going to go in the database, and I'm going to delete. So I've got this one for hours, and I'm going to delete it. So it's gone from the database, but it's still running here. Now if I go, because we're using a custom state in this text field here, this text field is taking the data from the browser, not from the database, because we've copied it from the database to the browser. Now when I do a refresh here, you can see it's all set to 0 again. Now, back to the workflow step, because there's another important, actually before I get to that, in case you're not familiar, page is loaded. General, page is loaded. And then you basically go set the states for the page is loaded. I'm going to delete that. The other critical part of this app for it to work is this do every 1 second. And basically what we have here is, sticking with the hours, we have the group hours duration, update counter with a current date and time. Okay, so update counter, and then down at the bottom here, current date and time. And then we have this only when. So similar to what we've seen before, when the group hours duration end time minus the duration is greater than 0, so when we're still counting down, so for instance this one here, that condition is true, and the group hours duration start or end is start, then to continue every 1 second to do a count. Okay, so it's decrementing every second. This right here is the reason why you're seeing this decrement every 1 second. So this is a critical part of the design. All of these others are similar as well. Now to get to the do every 1 second, so the event is general, do every 5 seconds. Now we want this to be 1 second, so all you do is change that to 1. So it's one every 1 second now. And it's as simple as that. Okay, so these other groups and text fields, the drop downs, these workflows, they are all very, very much similar, nearly identical. So go explore, try it out. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please, again, give me a thumbs up if you do, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.